Hello, Gaston County. Welcome to episode number 76 of Gaston's Great, a podcast highlighting some of the great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long, and we are coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services as we continue to look forward to having some great discussions in the coming weeks and months. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. We have another great topic, or I'm going to call it an initiative this week, as we highlight One Gaston 2040. Some of you may be familiar with Gaston Vision 2040, so we'll get to that in a minute. But we have Leslie Lee, Gina Shell, and Sharon Padgett with us today. Leslie is the Executive Director of Gaston Together, and you can learn more about Gaston Together on episode number 15. Gina is the Special Projects Manager with Gaston County, and Sharon is the CEO of the Gaston County Family YMCA, which is episode number 10 of Gaston's Great. Leslie, Gina, and Sharon, it's great to have you on, and welcome to the podcast.
Happy to be here.
Very good. That was very in sync, which I'm not surprised, which as much time as the three of you have spent together over the last
lifetime
12 years or
yes,
so with this
exactly.
project. So we kind of like to get started with just telling us a little bit about yourself. And maybe, Leslie, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, anything you'd like to share, and maybe your role here with One Gaston 2040.
Sure. I joined Gaston Together in the fall of 2021. I was excited to join an organization that works on bringing our community together to work on large problems and opportunities, and jumped right into working with Gaston Vision 2040. Had the opportunity to join with both Sharon and Gina, and we've created a really strong team as we are looking at opportunities for our county.
Okay, very good. Sharon?
What was the question again?
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay.
And maybe your role with One Gaston 2040, because basically Leslie didn't share much of anything about herself, but that's up to you.
That's why I was confused. So, yes, I am.
She just skipped that part.
So a little bit about myself. Have been with the YMCA for almost 30 years. And so
you were 6 when you started?
I was 6.
When you started with the Y?
And absolutely love the organization and its mission and what it does for so many people in community. And so I'm happy to be a part of the YMCA, but also happy to be a part of One Gaston 2040. And I serve on the steering committee and have served as the assistant chair. I guess that's what it's called, assistant chair. And have learned so much about Gaston County in this effort. I did not grow up here. I grew up in the metropolis of Monroe, North Carolina, and not New York. And just being here for 13 years now and really feeling very passionate about Gaston County and what it has to offer. Very
good. Gina, you're up.
Oh, thank you. So I'm a native of Hickory, grew up in Hickory, North Carolina. I've had about a 30-year career in public service. Worked for an organization in Hickory, worked for the city of Charlotte, and now super pleased to work for Gaston County. I've been a resident of Gaston County for about 26 years because we settled here when I started to work for the city of Charlotte, and we've lived in Mount Holly for those 26 years. To explain my role, I'm going to go back and give a little bit of history of the initiative.
Good.
I started work with the county in 2019, and one of my first projects was to work with a consultant named Ted Abernathy, who came to look into economic development in the county and offer some recommendations to the county commissioners. He talked with a lot of folks in the county, and he heard a lot of good ideas about creating a vision for economic development, but he also heard over and over that the people in Gaston County wanted to create a broader vision. They wanted to think about what healthcare and education and transportation and all those things might look like for the future of the county. That idea was of great interest to the county manager and the county commissioners, and so we started to think about a process that would create a vision for the county. That's when we realized that Gaston Together had done some visions in the past. They actually also had some momentum to start another vision, and so that created the great collaboration between the county and Gaston together that then grew into a much bigger collaborative initiative that resulted in One Gaston 2040.
Okay, so that's good. I appreciate that little history lesson. We could actually probably go a little further and talk about the previous, I guess they were called Gaston Vision or Visions that Gaston Together has also been involved with. In full disclosure, I am I guess it's called an advisory council member. It's not a board member really, is it, for Gaston Together? Board member, advisory council member for Gaston Together, and somehow, I think it was Leslie that pulled me into the steering committee and now the implementation team for One Gaston 2040. But I can assure you, the three ladies here are the ones really doing the work behind the scenes, not just behind the scenes, but out front as well, and really getting this to where we are today. So the big question, we're going to have some listeners who I would hope that most of our listeners are familiar with it somewhat, but there may be some that aren't. So just throw out the big question here. What is, Gina did a good job with a little bit of history there, but what is One Gaston 2040? How did it get to where we are today? Just kind of explain exactly what has been going on the last 18 months to 24 months. I mean, we probably go a little further back than that actually, but I don't really need to. And I'm going to throw it out to you guys, and I'm assuming 30 minutes later we'll be able to get back on track.
So I think you touched on some really important topics there. One is that we have had vision exercises before. In both 2012 and 2020, there were visions that were done through Gaston Together. But one of the things we realized is our county is changing so fast, so many things are happening, that this vision needed to be larger than either of those two initiatives had been. And it required more than Gaston Together could do on its own, which created the partnership between Gaston Together and the county. And that has been a very strong bond and a partnership that has helped us move this forward. Originally, this started off as a vision for Gaston 2030, and we quickly realized that was going to close in on us before we could get to where we wanted to go with what was coming out of this. So we changed it to 2040 and have worked very comprehensively over the last 18 months, really, to put together teams of people to look at the different areas and make sure that we talked throughout the county to all of the different people who might have opportunities and ideas and opinions about what we wanted our county to look like for 2040.
Okay, that's good. So in general, what are we trying to, I mean, you just mentioned it, but what are we trying to accomplish specifically? And Sharon and Gina, what would you add to that, kind of what it is and where we're headed? And I realize that's a big, vague question, but
and there's been a lot of work, as the two of them have talked about, from probably 2.5 years ago to really establish the base for this. And so being a community member, being a leader of a community organization in Gaston County, the excitement of joining this team, knowing that it was not a county government effort, it is not one of our city municipality efforts, it is truly from ground zero up. And so community members from across the county have come together to make this happen. And so from the many, we could probably regurgitate how many sessions we've had and how many meetings we've had, too many to count, and really gotten the feedback from our residents and our citizens and guests and everybody else in the county. And kind of how this has all bubbled up is we have several renditions of our vision statement. And what we have settled on is One Gaston, a place where everyone thrives. And it seems so simple. And we do want everyone, and we mean everyone, from West Gastonia to Cherville to Bessemer City to Belmont to Stanley and all around, to feel that Gaston County is a place where they can thrive from birth to death.
All right, so you just summarized, 2 years worth of work in one little sentence there. Now, I will admit, I think it's fair to say that we don't like to use this word here, but COVID may have, it caused some opportunities with the timing and kind of, we hope to be further along, but actually I think everybody can look back at COVID, whether it's business, community, government, whatever, that has caused some opportunities for all of us. Would it be fair to say in a simple terms that One Gaston 2040 is about what does Gaston County want to be? What do we want to be here? What do we want to be known for? How do we want our citizens to feel, so to speak? I mean, I'm not sure I'm a big fan of how the people feel necessarily, but I like the thrive concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because in everybody might view success and that definition of individuals thriving might be different for some people, but I like that concept. So wherever you're at, are you thriving, and do we have an environment where our citizens can thrive, right? Exactly. Gina, is there anything you would add to that, or have they covered kind of the what is it question pretty well?
Yeah, they covered it well. I can quote some language that we used often as we described what it meant to create a vision, and we said, we want to describe a place where we can, as a community, agree that we want to journey together. And so as we were out having the mini meetings, north of 40 meetings in person, many of them online due to COVID, as you pointed out, we asked the community questions. We asked, what do you love about Gaston County? What could be better in Gaston County? What can happen to help you live your life better wherever you live in Gaston County? What have you experienced in other communities that you would really like to see happen here? And so we used all sorts of creative questions to really help folks tell us what they want Gaston County to be in 2040. So we were, we can call them listening sessions. We were listening.
Right.
And trying to draw out those themes that we kept hearing over and over. We went all across the county. We went to every community. We talked with organizational leaders. We hosted in churches. We hosted a session or two sessions in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking community. And we were really listening to see what themes came through and what our citizens are interested in seeing in 2040.
So you bring up a good point and a reminder, something that I think is important for this group and our listeners to understand is the amount of citizens that were involved, and not just, and I mean the feedback that we've received, because it was super important, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was super important for the group that we get as much feedback from the entire county as possible. And it wasn't just, we got a group here from the city of Gastonia, and we interviewed a few residents of Gastonia, as opposed to Bessemer City, Mount Holly, Belmont, Crowder's Mountain area, wherever, Cherryville, right, wherever the case may be. So who kind of just can you give a general summary of the steering committee as an example? What kind of individuals, where were they from? I don't want to get into specifics necessarily, but kind of what encompassed and where did that group come from, and who was involved? From city, county, businesses. I mean, I thought it was a good cross section personally, but our listeners might like to know or hear from what was involved there. And I realized that wasn't a question that we sent you.
It was not, but what I liked about that effort is that it wasn't the same old.
Yep.
And it wasn't, I know so and they're really good on committees. And it was an application process. And so if you really wanted the opportunity to get involved, it gave everyone the opportunity to fill the application out. I think the committee that was putting this team together did look at different townships, representation from each. It was looking at different careers, probably folks that were leaders, folks that may be leaders in nonprofits, leaders in whatever area of occupation they were working in. And so we had doctors. We had a doctor. We had Deborah Ali, who was our chair, and she represents Gaston Lifestyles Magazine. Stephen Crane, who are some of the other folks that I shouldn't have started naming because I'm going to forget. Ray Hardy.
We tried to have a very strong cross-section,
Sure.
not just of those people who are already working in some of these areas, but gender and age and different representations, so to make sure that all of the voices were heard, because the real focus of this vision for 2040 has been making sure that we're hearing all of the voices, not just the voices that are coming to us, but all of the voices that we really need to have involved.
Okay, very good. So again, the point there is just to make sure our listeners understand this wasn't some, how would I put it? I've been involved in the community a long time. The typical
Exactly.
group that is in the smoky back room, so to speak, making decisions about what happens here in the county.
Absolutely not.
And I have been involved with a lot of different initiatives, organizations in the past 25 years specifically, and this had a different feel to it than some of the other things that I've been involved with, and I think it's got us here to a good place. So I'm not sure how to word this question. Not necessarily successes. What are you most proud of getting to this point? And then the big question is, where are we going? What information have you put together? And I'm not sure, we could talk about this for 3 or 4 hours probably because y'all have done so much. But, what are you most proud of? And then let's get into maybe what have you learned and there are specifics. I mean, obviously, before we're finished, we want to make sure all of our listeners know where can they go to find information. Look out, maybe even some listeners that might have a group that might want to hear more about it. So those type of things. So is that a fair question to throw out to where we are at this point?
Yeah, let me mention a couple of things that we're really proud of in terms of the process that we've had. We had some guiding principles. The steering committee had some guiding principles that they adhered to very closely through the process. And one was we wanted that robust, inclusive engagement. And we've talked about that a lot. We really achieved that. We talked with over 1,500 individuals we heard from diverse groups across the community. We really wanted people to feel like they could say whatever they wanted to say about Gaston County because we needed to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, the promising, everything. Sure. And I think we achieved that, and so we're really, really proud of that. Another thing that was also a guiding principle that we're proud of is we wanted to talk about implementing the vision from the very beginning. We didn't want to put together something that was going to become a dusty document sitting on shelves everywhere that nobody ever looked at again. And so from the very beginning, we thought about how do we create a vision that almost has inherent within it a structure for implementing and carrying forward and coming up with specific actionable goals and strategies and figuring out how to measure those goals and strategies. And so I'm really proud that we've done that, and we're going to be moving forward into implementation. And I'll hand off and let some other folks talk about those pieces. But those are some of the things that we are most proud of from the work that we all did over the last 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Sharon, anything to add to that?
Well, I was going to, I mentioned, we wanted Gaston County, the vision statement is a place where everyone thrives. And Leslie was going to mention the focus areas of kind of where we've fallen in this. And from the voices in Gaston County, everything has bubbled up to the 5 focus areas.
So
very good.
I think the most exciting thing about the focus areas is they came from our conversations with over 1,000 people. And that's a large number. That's a large number. And it was listening, and not all of those conversations were easy conversations. Some of them had a lot of levels to them. There was some contentious conversations. But from that, what we learned was how much people really care about what they want to see happen for our county. And our focus areas that came to the top, there's 5 of them. One Gaston Cares, and that talks about collaboration, about welcoming and having diverse populations represented, and health and wellness of our county. One Gaston Connects talks about mobility and connectivity, and that includes internet access. That is a theme that we heard over and over again, how the lack of internet access really has stopped people from thriving. One Gaston Works, we want to strengthen our target economic growth. We want to have our students be ready for college and career or however they choose to move forward after they finish with our education system. We have One Gaston Grows. We want housing opportunities. We want adequate infrastructure, but we also want to retain the character and the wonderful hometown feel that Gaston County is so proud of. One Gaston shines. We have to have a positive perception about our county. We have to celebrate Gaston County. We have to include arts and culture. We have to include our people.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm sure, again, before we're finished, we'll make sure there's probably some ways that our listeners can get a little more detailed information on that. But that kind of brings up what you just described there, especially at the last part, One Gaston Shines. That's kind of the reason we started this podcast, because there are a lot of good things happening around Gaston County, but it sometimes feels like a secret. We can't get the word out well enough. So, again, another thing I like to point out is with my involvement, what I've seen, why I'm so excited about what's gotten us here is, to your point, some of these conversations were not easy, and there were some hiccups along the road. In fact, if it was smooth sailing, I would, being a business owner, being involved with the community, my experience is that a little chaos is what's required for progress to happen. I mean, if it was just some smooth sailing conversations and we never talked about any hard topics, we wouldn't be making the progress that we would. And these 5 areas wouldn't have come out, and especially into the depth that we've got to them. So we've gotten to this point. We've gotten these 5 areas of focus. So now what? Right? I mean, to Gina's point about the implementation word is so important, that concept, because I think there's so many things, and being a business owner, I don't know how many initiatives we've got sitting on a shelf somewhere that, we're going to do that one of these days, or whatever the case may be. So now, what happens next? And then because isn't that the big next question? What probably the people involved, the people who are all of our stakeholders, they're really wanting to know what's next.
Well, one of the things I want to share is that through this process, I've had in the back of my mind and in the front, of course, all over, thinking about the YMCA and how it shows up in community. And through this process, we do strategic planning just like Gaston Together does strategic, many of the nonprofits and many of the businesses working on goals for the year. And as we do that, we've kind of worked in silos of what we know best, and thinking that that's what the community needs. And what's been great through this process is to actually hear the voices of Gaston County citizens and residents to say, this is what we need, this is what we want, these are our hopes for the future. And then as a business owner and as a leader of a nonprofit, I'm able to take that information and create a strategic plan that the business of the YMCA can deliver to the community based on the needs of the community. And that has been a big mind shift for me. And so as these things bubble, these top 5 focus areas, then it's our responsibility as a board of the Y, board of Gaston Together, board of the Literacy Council, to really go, how do we meet those needs? And where do we fit in the 5 focus areas?
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that I made that connection, but you're right. And this isn't some information that we win and grab because this is what this part of the country says, or our community similar to ours. This is what our community is telling us are top of mind, and their concerns and their...
Yeah, and an example of that kind of came to my mind was when we think about transportation and we think about economic development, and people are needing jobs. There's no way for someone from Cherryville to get to Gastonia to work. Transportation is an issue.
Sure.
So then I started thinking creatively, and I was like, well, the YMCA has buses, and they sit empty until 2 o'clock when the bell rings for school. And Boys and Girls Club has buses that sit empty until 2 o'clock when the bell rings. Where's the collaboration in that? What is the potential there to help for the YMCA to help with economic development, for Boys and Girls Club to help with economic development, to get people to jobs. And so, it might not work, but that's how we need to think. We need to think creatively in our community of how we help each other.
And if you're not talking together, right? No pun intended. Gaston is not talking together. Those things are going to be missed. And if this hadn't been brought together, there just wouldn't be that opportunity to discuss. So what's happening right now? The first quarter here, am I correct? We're basically getting into the almost like the PR, for lack of a better term. And I know y'all are doing this for one thing, so at least 3 more people will know about it that are listening. And I know you're going to visit organizations and boards of directors and municipalities. And is that kind of what's happening right now?
It is. And Sharon's illustration was the perfect segue to how we want to start the implementation of this, which is we don't want to recreate what's already out there. We want to take those initiatives, those organizations and groups that might already be addressing some of these, and we want to bring everyone together to start working on this as a group. We don't want 3 different groups working on the same issue. We want them to come together and work on it as a group. But we also want to have people who are addressing these issues individually, people who have the lived experience for how we can solve some of these, bring them to the table as well. So this is a much larger way of our looking at how we're going to address these than we've ever done before. That's going to take a lot of community coordination, which is part of where we're moving forward now. We're going out and we're talking to the community. We're sharing what the vision has told us. We're sharing the focus areas, and we're starting to create these implementation teams to start looking at what our different initiatives tell us we need to look at.
All right. Anything to add to that, Gina or Sharon, before I ask this next big question?
Well, I was going to mention specifically, we're going to be talking with the managers of all of our cities and towns. I believe those meetings are next week. Our cities and towns and the county have been very supportive, engaged, and involved in this effort. We wanted this from the beginning to be a public-private initiative, and all of our municipalities are very involved. And so we're looking forward to providing the opportunity to go back and talk with each of the elected boards, each city council, the commissioners, as they would like for us to come back. And so that'll be part of that sort of road show that we're doing. And we also will then be ready to talk with any other group or organization that wants a presentation on the vision and wants to get involved.
So let's look ahead a little further. I'm going to curveball this question a little bit. So 5 or 10 years down the road, you're looking back, and what would it look like if it was the success? I mean, when you were able to look back and say, what has happened in the next 5 to 10 years, and you're able to say, wow, the work we did came to fruition, or however you want to describe that. What would that look like? I know I just threw a little curveball to the questions.
I'm pretty passionate about the shines piece.
Yeah.
And so not growing up here, but growing up close by in Monroe, I only heard of Gaston County as Mary Jo's. That's the only way I knew Gaston County. My mother was she was a fabulous seamstress, and still is. So over the years, that has certainly changed. But we have more to go.
Sure.
And so I'm very passionate about what a great county this is. From Cherryville to Belmont, I want to make sure I'm passionate about the individuality of each municipality and each town, and keeping its characteristics, but also the connectivity between those, whether it's greenways or transportation in many ways, and then just the speak of how we talk about Gaston County. I think that's a big learning curve for a lot of us.
So if that's normal kind gosh, the normal day-to-day talk that was going on, if that was kind of changed, I don't think it has to go 180 degrees, but if that was changed a little bit by this initiative, then that would be a big success for you in your view. Mm-hmm. Okay. Gina or Leslie, would you add anything to that?
I think a success for me would be if we really see collaboration and innovation working in Gaston County. I feel like Gaston County is on this launching pad in a way. The growth is happening and it's going to continue to happen. We have some great organizations and leaders, and the creative example that Sharon just gave about, there are buses around that might be used. It's an idea.
Sure.
We don't know if it would really work or not, but if we can pull people together to think creatively about the needs and the challenges and the opportunities to meet those needs and challenges in collaborative and creative ways, I think if we can see that in 5 to 10 years, if that is the spirit of the way Gaston County gets things done, that'll be a great success.
Yeah, I think my experience the last few years feels like a change from, so specifically like the idea about the buses, just as an example. I think there was a time when it was immediately why we can't do that, as opposed to, well, why not? Why not us? I think that, I've seen a change in that. Some of it goes back to some of the other Go campaign, as an example, is one I think that has helped our county a little bit. But there's other things. Just a general attitude, I think, is a little better about we can do things here. The joke with NC State as a athletic program is we can't have nice things, but Gaston County can have nice things, and we can have success here. However that thriving is defined. Leslie, would you add anything to that? Or maybe this next question is kind of similar, is, why is, I like the question about why is Gaston County better? So why is Gaston County better? Also because this initiative is coming to life, is the way I like to word it. It's coming to life now, or that question about what the future would look like if it was a success.
And I hope that we will look back 5-10 years from now and see these new voices that we're bringing into this conversation really shining. That is going to be, for me, the benchmark of how we have succeeded. There's a lot of wonderful things happening in our county, but we keep them secret. and we need to stop doing that. And I think our new voices are the best way for us to get that out so that everyone knows what's happening. Because that's going to create an atmosphere where people are welcome to have innovative ideas and new opportunities. And hopefully they'll feel comfortable bringing that to the community and saying something exactly like Sharon suggested. I don't know if it's going to work, but let's talk about it together. Let's bring this together and see what we can do.
All right, that's good. That's a good way to kind of segue. So what have I not asked? What have I not asked? What we'd like to share? Obviously the big thing is awareness, first of all, and we'll make sure we get that done before we finish, is about where can listeners go, how can they get involved if there's such any opportunities. But is there anything I haven't asked, anything else you'd like to share before we move on to some more personal questions?
I want to talk about measurement for a second, because a lot of people will ask, how are you going to know
for
if
proof,
you've
right?
made a difference in those 5 to 10 years, for example? One of the sort of sibling initiatives that we are working on is an online data dashboard. And that might be a whole other segment here to talk about what that is. But basically it would be one place on the web where anybody could go and find data about Gaston County that they might need. For example, a governmental planner might need something as they are working on a report for the government on a particular initiative in their municipality. A nonprofit executive might need to go there to find data to write a grant to get funding for something. A neighborhood association might want to go to a resource like this to figure out how their community compares to other communities and what they might be able to do to shift some things within their neighborhood or area. So we're very excited about making that resource available. We're not sure exactly the timing of that yet, but the The goal would be that would be a place where we would have census data and pre-existing data about any demographic or community indicator within Gaston County. And then it also might be the place where we can start to keep the goals of the vision itself and understand how we are progressing toward any given goal that we set moving forward. So I did want to talk for a minute about measurement.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that is something that let's not just take our word for it.
Right.
Okay. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that go on that, well, trust me. Okay. Let's see some results, right? That is ultimately the whole point of this is to get better results in a sense. And so anything else before I move on to the really important stuff?
I think your comment about trust me, ask me.
Fair enough, yeah.
I want that to be, people feel comfortable at the end of this and they can ask the questions. We may not have the answers, but we have the opportunity to help them find it.
That's a great point. Great way to phrase that. So again, like I said, we'll make sure we close out with the really important information for our listeners. But something we do here on Gaston's Great is ask some Gaston County related questions. And today it's going to be the One Gaston speed round of questions. And we get to ask these, and we don't really care what our guests think. We're just going to do it. And I can only imagine where this is going to go with this trio. And some of these, one of our guests has already answered, but some of them are actually a little different than the first time she was on. So we'll make her answer again, and then we'll go back and make sure they match if it's the exact same question. So, but Gina, I'm going to start with you on this one because you've kind of been down there farther away from me and getting asked the third time on everything. So, Gina, what's your favorite Tony's ice cream flavor?
Rocky Road.
Rocky Road. I'm not sure we've had that as an answer. Sharon?
It's going to be different from episode 10 because you had the taste test.
We did have a taste test.
You didn't have that now, but my go-to is the chocolate vanilla swirl.
Chocolate vanilla swirl. Leslie?
Orange sherbet.
Orange sherbet. That's such a thing at Tony's?
It is.
Wow. That's definitely
Really
a first.
good.
I knew Leslie would have a unique Leslie-only answer. Sundrop or cheer wine?
Sundrop.
Cheer wine.
Gina, I'm with you down there. Gina, favorite local restaurant?
Ray Nathan's Barbecue.
Ooh, Ray Nathan is good. Sharon?
Blaze.
Blaze Pizza?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever been there.
Oh, my God. So good.
What are you talking about now? I see you with all kinds of food over there. Leslie?
The Italian Cafe in downtown Gaston.
Oh, okay. That's cool. All right. Leslie, favorite outdoor activity in Gaston County? Your favorite park or something?
Walking the thread trails.
Yeah, thread trails are great.
YMCA sites trails.
There should
Crowder's
be
Mountain.
the Crowder's Mountain. We should put some kind of, you can't answer the YMCA. I mean, geez. All right. Here is the most important question of the entire podcast. Gina, I'll stay with you. UNC Duke or NC State?
So the reason I answer this way is this was the way that my dear departed father always answered. Any NC school that's still in it is a good NC school, and you pull for them.
Okay, that is.
So nice.
We'll accept that, but that's a little bit too politically correct for Gaston's Great, especially
Right?
that question. Okay, this is.
If it has to be an ACC school, it's going to be state. However, I'm married into the Gamecocks. Go Cocks!
Give me something that they'll hear this. Give me something bad, yes. Okay. You just got want, by the way. Leslie?
You're going to hate this answer. Yukon Huskies.
Yukon. If I remember correctly, that's above the Mason-Dixon line, so that is an unacceptable answer here on Gaston's Great. I'm kidding.
Alma mater. What can I say?
None of us actually answered your question.
We
I don't
didn't.
think.
I kind of did.
You did.
If I had to choose.
I would expect.
State.
I actually would expect no less. So, Leslie, something very few people know about you.
I have a Master Gardener certificate.
Oh, really? Oh, that's terrific. I don't remember your answer from episode 10. I probably put it out of my mind, but we're going to go there.
I don't remember either, but I can sing the states, all 50 states in alphabetical order.
That was your answer.
Was
I'm pretty
that it?
sure.
I'm gifted.
I do. I just had a flashback.
And I can play the ocarina. Not the Macarena, the ocarina.
I don't even know what that is.
You have to Google it.
I will probably not do that, but I appreciate your answer. Gina, how
It's
would you
another
answer
musical
that?
instrument. I have attempted through the years to play mountain dulcimer.
I've no idea what that is either.
Put it on your lap and you strum.
Oh, okay. So I would know it by sight, but I have no idea what it's called.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of my life. What that is? Oh, I see. Yeah. Give me a good visual. All right, Jen, how about a good recent book or something you could recommend, blog, article, or anything you might recommend to our listeners?
I just downloaded onto Kindle Frederick Buechner's series of daily meditations called Listening to Your Life. A friend of his went through all of his writings and pulled out tiny excerpts for each day of the year. So
Okay.
Buechner in Meditations.
Very good. I'm all about a daily devotional or daily reading.
Mine, I just finished, was Hidden Christmas by Timothy Keller. Fabulous.
I have read a couple things from him, so that's interesting. I don't think I'm familiar with that one. So 5 stars.
5 stars, hands down.
Very good.
My go-to when I need to remember my why is Making the Impossible Possible by Bill Strickland.
Making the Impossible Possible. That sounds like my kind of book. At least that title does. Let's hope One Gaston 2040 isn't making the impossible, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, listen, I appreciate that because I'm a big reader. Matter of fact, Sharon and I have shared several books with each other over the year. So that's the topic and the question I like to ask. And I have read more than one of the suggestions that we've gotten over the past 76 episodes. So I appreciate you indulging us on those Gaston County questions because that's really what, family, friends, board members, that's what they really want to know about you. So now it's forever going to be on them internets now, and you can't deny any of those answers. So Leslie, I'm going to stick with you on this next question. Besides the work you guys are doing, initiative of One Gaston 2040, how would you answer, or why would you say Gaston County is such a great place?
I think the people. I've met some of the most wonderful people here, and it makes a difference.
It's been a relatively common answer, and I appreciate that. I agree. Sharon?
What else makes Gaston County so great? This podcast.
How about a little clapping or something? There we go. Boy. Thank you, Sharon.
You're welcome.
That was great.
If I can't name my organization, the YMCA, then I'm going to say this podcast.
Well, you just did. You just.
Oh, did I? Oh.
You just, yeah.
My apologies.
That rule follower. We have such strict rules here at Gaston's Great that everybody follows. Gina, how would you answer that since Sharon just destroyed that question?
One thing that's top of mind for me right now, because I'm back to doing some traveling again, is being so near to a world-class airport.
You know what? That's a good point. I mean,
Really fortunate.
from where we're sitting, unless there's some traffic issue, it's 15 minutes, literally 15 or 16 minutes from right here. So it's nice to. Oh, this is on video too, but I'm not gonna share what Leslie just showed me on her answer to that. What makes Gaston County so great? But you could see it right here.
I will. It's Stephen's penguin shirts.
Yes.
Oh, my.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to accomplish there. Make sure everybody. All right, Gina. This I kid her about some of the other questions, but this really is my favorite question. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Have fun and travel more.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't do anything like travel when I was 20.
I'm curious as to what episode 10 Sharon said, but I'm going to say it's all going to be okay.
Things that weren't that big seem like a big deal when you're 20, weren't they? Yeah, jeez. And for Naomi, that was like, what, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago? Thank you. Leslie, how would you answer that?
Don't worry about it. Just do it.
Yeah, what was the fear we had when we were 20 about not doing something or whatever that was, right? You know?
It's going to be okay.
Boy. Wish I had somebody recorded these and played them back to me when I was like 20.
Right.
All these answers for the last 76. I wonder if my kids are listening to these episodes. They're 23, 21, and 16. I need to make sure they're listening to all this great advice from our guests. All right. So again, I appreciate those questions there. And so this has really been good. And so again, the main point is, so our listeners are aware. So where can they go to find more information, ask questions? You guys have all brought this great document. Is there some place they can get more information on the 5 focus areas, just anything and everything that you guys can share?
So our website is onegaston2040.com. That is, spell out One Gaston, ONEGASTON 2040.com.
Information will also be on Gaston Together's website,
Okay.
which is gastontogether.org.
All right.
And we need community members to get involved.
Okay.
And so please, if you're interested in any of these 5 focus areas, our website should have a contact us. Does it? Okay.
Okay.
So go there, express your interest, let any of us know, and we will get you connected.
All right. Yes. Yeah, so the big, I guess, sharing what you're going out into the community right now and having discussions with groups and individuals, the big push is getting involvement on the teams that are going to be working on specifically on the 5 focus areas. Is
That's
that
correct.
correct? Okay. So again, hopefully we got some listeners out there who have the heart and care as much about our community as these 3 ladies do. And I just we kind of glossed over 2 years worth of work or longer, in here in about 40 minutes or so. But I can't stress enough the work that these 3 specifically have done and how much they care about the community. The steering committee as a whole, the support from the community businesses, the municipalities, the county. I mean, none of this we can't have gotten where we are without all of that collaboration, so to speak, that Gina has mentioned more than once. But it's really been driven by these 3. And so I'm very grateful for the work that you guys have done, and you guys have really done a terrific job and made a lot of progress. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. And I'm looking. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but that 5 years from now, and looking back and see the progress that we've made, on top of the progress that we have already made. So I'm very grateful. So I'm going to do my my own recommendation, book or podcast recommendation for the week, and it's a book I read probably maybe a year and a half or so ago called 4,000 Weeks, and the subtitle is Time Management for Mortals. So I've read a lot of time management stuff over the years, and a lot of it is just this, I don't know, I would call this pie in the sky stuff that just doesn't seem reasonable. But this kind of gets into, it's okay if you mess it up every now and then, but here's some ways. And the author's name is Oliver Burkeman. So again, it is one I would recommend. When I look back in I use Goodreads to track all my books, and it was a 5-star rating by myself, so it must have been good. So, I even found some notes in my journal about it. So also, do a quote or thought for the week to finish off each episode. And this one, I think is good, and it's related. I'm going to say it's related to change in the new year. We're recording this on January 4th. Is that right? And so it'll be released next week on the 11th. So, in fact, something that Gina mentioned may have already happened by the time this comes out. Some of those meetings with the municipalities and the managers. But I think it applies to our guest, and I also think it applies to the One Gaston 2040. It comes from Jim Rohn, who said, "Your life does not get better by chance; it gets better by change." And man, sometimes that's a hard one to take because I think I'd really just like somebody else to do all the changing for me, and I just get the good results from it. But no, it takes some individual work. It takes some self-awareness. It takes some, some maybe taking a step back and looking at where you're at. And if you want to have a different result in the future, sometimes you got to get your hands dirty and make some personal change. So to our listeners out there today, thanks so much for taking the time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast, and please don't hesitate to contact us here at podcast. This is our email address, podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please follow us on all our social media platforms. And apparently giving us a good 5-star rating helps the podcast get noticed. Is that correct, Naomi? And I have no doubt this is going to get lots of 5 stars today. Thanks again to Leslie, Gina, and Sharon for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services and edited here locally by the Sumner Group. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.